Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about The Underwater Menace by Geoffrey Oms and directed by Julia Smith. It is important. This is the DVD version, which I watched for the first time. Originally I watched this with the loose cannon reconstruction, but I decided to watch the DVD for its... We'll get into it. But the story has episodes 1 and episodes 4 missing. Now, as you may remember, all the episodes in The Power of the Daleks and in The Highlanders are missing. So episode 2 is the earliest surviving episode of the Patrick Troughton era. So it makes the story very interesting. Now, Geoffrey Oms, this is his only Doctor Who writing experience, but he has a career that's spanned since 1936. And he's done so much television, like The Avengers TV show from the 60s, and a few other stuff that are especially around the 60s and the 50s. So keep that in mind, that he has a very broad scope when it comes to his writing. Julia Smith directs this story. Now, if you remember correctly, she also directed The Smugglers, and she's one of the, I think she's the second female director, if I remember correctly. And she's also the co-creator of the EastEnders. Despite my opinion thinking that she's a very good director in this story, it's stated on the documentary on the DVD that Patrick Troughton really didn't get along with her, and so did the rest of the cast. She seemed a bit strict with her directing style, so that's just an important thing to note. How's the story itself? Well, the Doctor and the crew, consisting of Ben, Polly and new companion Jamie, they land in the 1970s. Very futuristic. And what they do is they go on to the underground island of Atlantis, which they go through a tunnel, I believe. But yeah, and it's here that they meet a sort of like tribe people who are like a very religious group, and they got like religious uniforms, and they pray to the gods and stuff, and they work with a scientist, Professor Zenkoff, and he's told the people that he wants to bring Atlantis up off of the sea so that Atlantis can be with the rest of the world. But the Doctor soon finds out that he actually plans to destroy the world by breaking the hole, a crust in the hole, basically making the planet explode, because he's mad. He basically says it's like the greatest scientific achievement to destroy the planet, including him. So he's basically on a suicide mission, and the Doctor, there's very hilarious moments with Patrick Troughton trying to explain to people he's as mad as a hatter. And there's a great bit where he goes, he knocks his head and he goes, "No one's home." Very sad. So a lot of comedy elements come through this whole Dr. Zenkoff is a mad scientist, and he is literally, if you had a list of like the top 10 mad scientists, he would be like way just above it, because he is like the cliched mad scientist. He's got like a really thick accent, and the cliffhanger to part 3 is probably one of the most famous lines where Dr. Zenkoff gets, he shoots like the leader of this tribe, and then he goes and he shouts out, "Nothing in the world can stop me now!" And that's just like a really like famous scene. It's just how enthusiastic this guy plays it. So it seems to me there's two groups. There's people who think this story is really dumb and stupid, especially with the cast as well. Mostly known is that Patrick Troughton himself was really disappointed when he got the script, and he wasn't feeling sure about his era of the show, as this was only his third story, and he didn't feel like the story was strong enough. So that's interesting to note. Or you can love it for its cheesy, silly aspects. And it's not like the story's like one of like the worst one of the panned. It's like, it seems like people's opinion, it's like 50-50, and I'm in the, it's funny. This is probably considered the first so bad it's good story, if you don't consider The Chase, which was kind of like a proper comedy. Here it's like a little bit more unintentionally funny, but I digress. And so the whole plot line comes through as Polly teams up with one of the tribe girls, and Ben and Jamie, they got to team up because they're now being sent to the mines, and they befriend these two miners, and they try to escape from the scientists' rule. So, you know, there's a lot of things going on plot-wise, and so let's break down the characters one by one. Second Doctor, fantastic. This probably has some of his best moments in the series, like when he meets Zenkoff, and he's saying how brilliant he is and stuff, and then he's like, how amazing his sciences can make it it's easy to destroy the world. And then he goes to Zenkoff, is like, I just have one question. Why do you want to destroy the world? And he says it so calmly as well. Now, a thing as well about the Second Doctor era is that a lot of moments he seems to be playing the fool. Like, there's a lot of moments where, for example, in like the first scene, he's like flicking all the switches behind Zenkoff's back, and when he gets caught out at one point, he kind of acts like he did it by accident, and he has his lip bottom like that, looking very sad for himself, like really childish. And his Doctor does that a lot. It's sort of like his thing, and it's where we get the Doctor disguising himself as a bumbling idiot, but in reality he's like one of the smartest people in the room, if not the smartest people. Patrick Troughton is really the first like definitive Doctor. As William Hartnell, obviously he's like one of the greats as well, but his Doctor isn't the Doctor that most people trying to imitate. It's mainly Patrick Troughton, and you can see that a lot in other performances later on in the series, like Tom Baker, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy really delves into it, David Tennant, Matt Smith, and Jodie Whittaker, just to name a few. So Patrick Troughton really set a gold standard for what it means to be the Doctor. Jamie and Ben become like a sort of duo act in this story. We still haven't got the Doctor and Jamie relationship that we all know and love in later stories, but Ben and Jamie really work well off each other. You've got Ben, who's kind of like the straight face of the crew, and Jamie, he's sort of, because he doesn't know most of the things that's going on, because, you know, he's like he's from the past, and he's a bit more light-hearted than Ben, so they two work off really well with each other. They don't get a lot of like character beats in this story, but plot-wise they do get a lot, and they are fun to watch with. Polly, I think in this one might be is really disappointed from the rest of her stories. It even explains on the documentary on the DVD that that the actress was very disappointed with her role in this one, as we've gone from the Highlanders, where her and that other girl that she teamed with in that story were very like female empowering and very 60s girl, but in here she becomes the cliched damsel in distress, as in episodes 1 she gets taken to be used as a science experiment to turn her into a fish people. And yeah, that's another thing. There's these like weird fish people in the story, which you look at them and they're like they look like the monsters like thing, but they do absolutely nothing apart from go on a strike in part 4, which I find really funny. They are used by the Atlanteans to get food, but their food only lasts for like an hour, so they got to constantly like work. And you think, right, these fish people are probably going to be like the big monster of the story, but they're hardly in it, which is very disappointing. I do kind of like their designs. You can see them on the DVD cover. There's something really feminine, very gentle about them, but they're also kind of terrifying as well when you really think about it, because these are not monsters. These are human beings that have been transformed into these disgusting fish monsters to live their life like this. And you don't see any of them talk, so it highly suggests that they can't talk, and it, like this procedure makes them mute. And it's really actually pretty terrifying when you think about it too much. But like I said, they don't have a lot of plot-wise. The villain is mainly Dr. Zenkoff. So Dr. Zenkoff, very cliched mad scientist, but I think it really works in this story. The actor who plays him plays it way over the top, but it's so over the top that you can't help but laugh at some lines. The rumour is that this actor was a British person who put on an accent, but in reality it was actually his real life accent. I think it's an Austrian accent, I believe. I could be wrong. It reminds me a lot of Bela Lugosi from Dracula, that really thick European accent. But yeah, and an important thing to note as well, the Doctor seems to already know him as like this like famous historical figure who died back in the 60s. So that's interesting to note. And that like before he was like a famous scientist, but then he kind of like went mad and he found Atlantis and he decided to live there and decided to destroy the planet for mad reasons. He gets so convinced that what he's doing is like the peak of science that you do genuinely believe that he wants to destroy the world. So I can see a lot of people not liking his villain performance, but it sticks out your mind. You're not gonna finish the story and forget that he exists. But there you go. And there's a big theme of like religion as well in the story, as the religious people, the citizens of Atlantis, they are this like religious cult basically, and though they need the scientists' help, they believe in all this stuff. And there's a great bit where the Doctor and one of the high priests who's going to be executed, they escape because Ben pretends to be one of their gods and they all have to like bow down, and then they believe that the Doctor and this priest guy was being sacrificed to the gods. And yeah, there's a lot of like thematic elements. Now, another thing to note in this story is the settings. I really love the settings in this story. When we're in like the caves and you see all like the religious statues and stuff, and you've got these people, very like fish people, and like I don't know, and the music in these scenes, it reminds me a lot of like Legend of Zelda Water Temple. It really sticks out that scene. They even like have like fish masks as well. So there's like a lot of, if you like that kind of style, the episodes that we do have that exists really suit this story. And then when we go into the scientists' laboratories and stuff, it's really Dr. Frankenstein. It's very like, you got the bulbs and the lights and the thing. It's not like too like over the top, but it does bring out memories. And you've got like all the scientists wearing like white scientific uniforms. So it's got a lot of like elements, and you've got the miners working in the mines that remind me a lot of. I can't think of anything to compare it to actually, but yeah, so it's so you've got like one set in Legend of Zelda, one set in Frankenstein, and another set in the Industrial Revolution coal mines kind of things. So, really, it keeps yourself interested as you got all these plot threads, you got all these set in, and you got all these characters. Maybe a bit too many characters, as a lot of them don't get a lot to do. Like with Ben and Jamie, they instead of having like one character having like a lot of details, you kind of have to spread it between two characters and four characters when they befriend the other two, which you've got to kind of do to set up this world. But it means that when you're with these group of characters and they're all very like similar, these like strong, hard-minded men trying to break out, they all kind of feel similar. And you've got like obviously the scientists, you got Zenkov, and you've got like this other one with big mushy eyebrows, so you've got like a few characters that are very similar to each other, and but there is a lot going on in this story, so you got that. And then you've got the ending in which Zenkov gets drowned to death. It's like, oh god. But yeah, very dark ending for like a really classic Doctor Who. In the booklet as well, because with these DVDs they come with a booklet. It's the first opening lines are, "This is as close as Doctor Who will ever get to a cartoon," which really sums up the story. There's a lot of silly, like flamboyant moments, and yeah, it's very cartoonish. In a good way or bad way, it's up to the viewer, but I personally thought it was enjoyable. So yeah, that's the story. However, we need to talk about something as well with this story, particularly the DVD itself. Now, let's back up a bit. Hold on, let me find out when this came out. I believe it was 2005. So, when they announced this back in, I believe, 2004, the idea was to have it, like any other Doctor Who DVD at the time, is to have the missing episodes animated. However, they lost a lot of budget and a lot of time, so they decided to use telesnaps, like a loose cannon reconstruction. However, the reconstructions of episode 1 and 4 are god awful. I mean, like with loose cannon, let me break it down. So with loose cannon, you've got the still photos, but they insert all of the surviving clips that we have, like maybe like the censored scenes that survived, or maybe a few clips that people recorded off their TVs, and as well with surviving photos to make it easier. They kind of maybe like swap some of the scenes to make it obvious like what's happening, and they zoom up on characters to know who you're talking on, which might ruin the quality of the picture, but it suits the story. It's up to the story. The DVD reconstruction does none of that. In fact, even the opening credits is a still photo, which really boggles the mind, and you're just like, what? Not even, I mean, we have the opening credits. We all know this. Why don't you do that? And what they've done is they put the photos in chronological order, which is fair enough. But because they don't like zoom it up or anything, or, kind of like set like behind the scenes stuff or anything, it's really boggling, because now it doesn't cut to the story. So you've got bits where the picture has like Ben and Jamie, but it's a scene in the dialogue, it's a scene with the Doctor and Polly or Zenkov, and Ben and Jamie are not even in the scene. And one big boggling bit is in part 1, where the Doctor and the crew look like look through like a window or something and they see a giant shark. And obviously the construction cuts to like a picture of the shark that survived. However, for some reason, this picture of the shark, which from the dialogue only appears in it for like maybe a second, for some reason they keep on the frame for about 10 minutes, whilst the story is like completely like going past. So it's the reconstruction is horrible, and it's really noticeable right at the very end where you have the cliffhanger, like say like in part 1 where you have the reveal of the fish people, and you hear the music, the credit music, but there's no actual credits that play forward. It's literally just a picture of the fish people, a still photo of them just there, and the music, and it only really cuts to the credits right at the end where you get the producer credit and the director's credit. So the actors don't actually get a credit in parts 1 and part 4, which just, is that even legal? I'm sure you've got to be credited in stories, even if it's a reconstruction. And the fact that there's none of the surviving clips, which we do have, because it was one of those stories that got censored by the ABC. So boggling how they didn't like insert them in the reconstruction. And another important thing to note as well, with loose cannon, they would, when like a character does something, like picks up something and there's no photos to represent it, they would have like text on the bottom but here stating what's happening, like Jamie picked up a gun or something. But they don't do that here, which means a lot of scenes just like you have no idea what's going on. Like you'll have characters like talking and suddenly everybody's like, okay, everybody put your arms up and stuff like that, but nobody knows what's happening. So yeah, just a very important things to note. I did decide to watch this DVD version this time around because this is actually the first time I watched the DVD version. I've heard so many bad things about it. So I decided to watch the DVD version this time. I've seen the story hundreds of times in a loose cannon reconstruction, so I know what's happening. But if you haven't watched this story before, don't watch the DVD version first. I mean, obviously, watch it when you do know what's happening, but don't recommend the DVD. But yeah, there you go. That's the Underwater Menace. Personally, I really enjoyed it. It's silly, it's goofy, and like the booklet says, it's the closest thing Doctor Who's getting to a cartoon. But I personally had a lot of blast with it. The villain is cheesy. I like the settings, the characters, and it's just very humorous. And to see Patrick Troughton, his oldest surviving clips episode of his, just really sticks out in my mind as a great Doctor Who story. But it is important to note that it is kind of split between the fan base, and there's a half like it and half hate it. So keep that in mind. So there you go. So join me next time where we meet our classic Doctor Who villain again, and the first time the second Doctor meets in the Moon Base. So I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon.